Hello and welcome, brothers. It is with a heavy heart that I have to tell you that I will be taking a break from one of my most enjoyable hobbies, Warhammer 40,000. It's not an easy choice, and it's mainly driven by cost and prices and things like that. It's not really about time. I've got time to do the hobby, and fear not that I will try and make a Warhammer Wednesday video when I can, so it won't be weekly as normal, but it will be on a Wednesday when I can. So it'll be more of a watered down Warhammer Wednesday. Like I said at the start, it's to do with the cost. Games Workshop in particular, and I'm not a guy that's just bought an army or a couple of armies. I've done this hobby for well over 20 years, and I've seen a lot of changes. What they're doing is their business methods are kind of falling in line with a lot of other companies, essentially trying to make as much money out of you as possible. And I know they're a business, they've got to make money, I get that, but there is a limit. When you're now talking about 107 quid for 11 models and a book, that's about $180, $170, something like that. It's getting a bit ridiculous, even for myself, who absolutely loves the hobby, is passionate for the hobby, and all the rest of it. There are other reasons, and I'll go into them very shortly. But first of all, I just wanted to say thank you ever so much for joining me on that debate regarding who the hobby is for, because I put out the question, who the hobby's for. A lot of people, a bit short-sighted, they thought it was kind of a personal thing in terms of myself, whether I should be spending my money on that, and that's not what I envisioned for that question and for that video. It's a general question to everybody, who you think GW are aiming the hobby for, not personally whether it should be for me anymore. It's for everyone, like who should it have been for, what's the target audience, because I really at that time struggled to kind of understand who they're aiming all their products for, and their models for, and their books and everything to do with the hobby. It seems like every month or every couple of months I get even more confused. The span of who they're aiming it for just keeps getting wider and wider and wider, and I just keep getting confused about who they're targeting. They don't seem to be targeting, this is just my opinion of course, but they don't seem to be targeting the hardcore loyalists anymore, because they're constantly changing things. They don't seem to be targeting the tournament players. All I think that they seem to be targeting now for is just people with money. Like, we're talking a lot of money, that take home quite a bit a month, and that this is their main hobby. If it is your own main hobby, that's fair enough. I'm sure a lot of you have other hobbies that you like to do, spend time on, and just to have one hobby that you spend all your time on, it's up to you, but I like a bit of variety personally, because sometimes you can get quite bored with the hobby. Anyway, so that's a little catch on from that. So thank you ever so much for joining me in that debate. I think it's got about 30,000 views, which is just unbelievable. It is a topic that's close to people's hearts, and I think it was an important question to raise. Likewise, this video is going to be mainly about why I'm taking a break. I just mentioned the cost, and I mentioned the short period in space of time between new releases, particularly Imperial Knights. Well, firstly, they snuck in a new Eldar Codex. This is my one from, believe it or not, 2 years ago, and only just 2 years ago. Within the last 2 years this came out, and I bought it brand new when it came out. I held off buying any of the new models. I just didn't get time to do that. I was buying knives at the time, but they've released that within 2 years, and I thought, okay, maybe it's a one-off, maybe they need to release Elder Craft Worlds or whatever. No, they hit you with a new Codex. Again, I think it's £25. I think this one was £25, and this only came out last year, about March time last year. It's only just been more than a year, and they've already released a new Codex, which completely supersedes this because it's got different units and things. They released, I say a new model, it's the same model, same leg poses as this one here, but with just a couple of different weapon options and things. Charge an extra tenner, it's almost £100. So we're talking about $150, $160 for one model. Yes, you only in theory need 3 to make an army, but that's another point. I thought, okay, I could take both of those things. That's fine, but I'm not going to promote it. I'm not going to buy these new books and buy the new models, because that's when you do that to a company, you're kind of agreeing with their decision to do that. I'm all for new models. I'm all for new books. Don't get me wrong. You know, I've been in this hobby for a very long time. But when you're doing that, when they're releasing a new model within a year, when they're releasing a new book just after a year, and you're buying it, not only are you, obviously you're buying a product which you'll enjoy, value is, you know, subjective and all that good stuff, but what you're doing is more than anything is you're saying, yes, Games Workshop, I believe that releasing a new book every year, or releasing a new model every year to update it, is a good thing, and I want you to carry on doing that. That is the message you're doing. I don't think it's as basic as them releasing a model and you buying it and that's as far as it goes. No, they're quite a huge company. They look at a lot of their stats and they obviously analyse those. They analyse their sales, and they wouldn't be where they are today if they didn't do that. Within 2 years, it's only been a year and a half, this large Space Marine Codex, which was almost 200 pages, 180 pages. They've just released a new one, everybody. Just released a new one, selling again at about £35. What am I meant to do with this? I mean, I think I've had a few games. You know, yeah, I'm not a tournament player or anything like that, but I've only had a few games, and already this book is just a paperweight again. I used to get annoyed when they did that with the rules, but as time has progressed, they're doing this more and more and more. And I know this sounds like a rant. It probably is a little bit of a rant. I'm not that fussed about the models because I like the new Assault Marines, and I think that they're £25, I think, something like that. And I like the new Devastators, albeit they're £28, so it's almost £30 now for 5 models. Yes, you get the little cherub, I know that, but you can pick the old Devastator squad up on like Wayland, I think, for like 16 quid. But if you really like your kneeling Devastator and you really like your grav cannons and the new Sergeant, then you know you got to pay your 12 quid more. I'm all for new models, but I'm not for them re-releasing things so soon after. They really have been very aggressive in terms of their releases and things. Who can blame them? You saw their sales and things from last year or the year before. They're always, it's on a bit of a slope at the moment. So who can blame them that they're going to be quite aggressive in releasing things? But that's detrimental, and I don't think they realise that, to be honest. With us hobbyists that have been doing this for a long time, I don't think they realise that releasing new models and new books within shorter time frames, it's not a solution. It's just more of a short-term bump into their profits. Long term, it's going to have such a huge impact. It's actually going to make them go worse off in the long term. So I don't know what they're planning short term. Maybe they've got a few other things up their sleeves, but it just seems like they're very focused on the here and now and trying to appease shareholders, you know, on a kind of day by day basis. I don't know why they need to do that, but I remember when back in the day they released a Codex, and that was it for 4 or 5 years until a new rulebook came out. But it hasn't even been 2 years, and they've already got the Space Marines. Some people, when they announced the Space Marine Codex, some people they said, "Oh, it's just because of the publisher or whatnot. It's because Space Marines is not really copyrighted, and they need Adeptus Astartes." That's a load of rubbish. On the new Space Marine Codex, it says, yes, it does say Adeptus Astartes, but it says Space Marines in much bigger, bolder writing. So there's still Space Marines, but what you've done is you've just brought that Codex out, within 2 years of the previous one. And the whole catalyst for that was those 7th edition rules, unfortunately, with all the tactical objectives and things. Bringing those out, I think last year, has kind of had a knock-on effect to all of these codexes that came out within 2 years. And yes, you can say, well, in the life cycle of things, it would make sense that GW would bring out a new codex at this time for Space Marines because of they were released quite late in the previous edition's life cycle. I completely understand if you're coming from that direction, but surely it would have made sense to hold off for a couple more years and do the same again, because what it's done is created the new rules last year. You've now got a codex out that is within the past 2 years. Now, I thought that the last edition rulebook came out quite quick, the 7th edition rulebook, and I vocalised that. And when I went into a couple of Games Workshop stores, they had tons of those rulebooks, tons, and that might have been because of the new format, because they were selling you the rules, a book of pictures, and another book of things. I've forgotten what it is, but you see what I mean. Like, they had tons of them. I don't know whether they were well stocked, but if you've got that many books, you're taking a lot of floor space, and one of their biggest costs is actually their shops and things. So one would have, thought that you wouldn't really put many books in the stores. But anyway, I'm veering off on many tangents. I noticed that their Codex Space Marine Successors Limited Edition, which is £100, is already sold out. Hasn't been very long at all. I don't know how many there were available, but they seem to be focused on the here and now, very short-sighted kind of business model at the moment, whereby they're selling you what's perceived as limited editions or limited number of products, which is never in any business's interests, in my opinion, especially as these so-called limited editions are going to be completely, surpassed and overwritten in 2 or 3 years' time. Yes, one might argue that, Super, you don't know when the next, 8th edition rules are coming out. I bet you now that the new 8th edition rules will be out either next year or the year before. So I've got a funny feeling they'll be out either next year. They could even be out towards the end of this year. They're being so aggressive with their release dates and release models and things. But I just thought I've got into a bit of a rant, but the bottom line is, because of the pricing really, and because of their nature of releasing products and things so quickly, very, very quickly, so quick that I am a bit disgusted, and I can't really, the pill is just too big for me to swallow anymore, and unfortunately I'm going to take a break from at least buying any of their products, because I think not buying anything, it sends a bigger message. None of their products are going to go away. They've got products on there from over 10 years ago, so I'd never worry about that. But I myself am going to take a break, not buy any new models or anything like that, which saddens me, because I would have loved to have bought, an Assault Squad or a Devastator Squad, unbox it for you all, hopefully one day paint it up and show you the new models, which I am very still passionate about. But that's sending the wrong message, especially to GW. And I don't really condone that. So what I'm going to do, just take a break from buying anything, but I'm going to try and keep with bringing you Warhammer Wednesday content, because I don't think you should suffer for their mistakes. On that bombshell, really, I'll be releasing my Night Titan guide, number 6 I think it is, very shortly, if it hasn't already been released. I think I'm releasing this video next week and the Night Titan this week, so that's probably last week in the grand scheme of things, if you didn't need confusing already. And then I think the week after will probably be the Bat Rep, and then I'll hopefully try and start the Reaver Night Titan completion guide. So and then when I'm when I've painted a few models and things, I'll obviously do the showcases. I might even start on a mini series just to fill up Warhammer Wednesday with units. So I'll set up my board, have a Vindicator, and I'll go through all the stats and just talk to you about it. But obviously I'd need the new Codex. What do you think? Is it too much now for you to get out? Is it too much of a bitter pill to swallow? Put it all down in the comments. And if you agree with some of the things I've said about their release schedules and the prices and things, give me a thumbs up. That's a message from you that you kind of agree with a lot of the things that I've said in this video. Anyway, thanks ever so much for joining me today. The Emperor protects.